With BleemSync 1.1 just being released, we now have access to one of the best Nintendo DS emulators on the market. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to get that set up with your BleemSync 1.1 build. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. So as I said, with BleemSync 1.1 just being released, we now have access to Drastic. And Drastic, if you don't already know about it, is one of the best Nintendo DS emulators, period. There is no better Nintendo DS emulator on the market. This plays most games really well, and the guys at Mod My Classic have been optimizing it so that way we can port it over to the PlayStation Classic right within your BleemSync 1.1 build, and you can actually play Nintendo DS games right on your PlayStation Classic console, which is really awesome. I do want to mention that it is only compatible with BleemSync 1.1, it is not compatible with Auto Bleem, and it is not compatible with any previous version of BleemSync. You must be on the latest version, BleemSync 1.1. So if you haven't done that already, I'll leave a link in the description down below for you guys to follow how to update or how to do a fresh install of BleemSync 1.1. Now I'm working with a beta build of Drastic, so I don't have a link directly to send to you guys in the video to show you guys where to download from, but by the time the video is released, I'll have a solid link, and I'll make sure I put it in the description down below so you guys can just click on the link, go ahead and download yourself your copy of Drastic, and we can all be on the same page there. So I've got my Drastic pre-downloaded right over here. I'm going to go ahead and right-click on the file, and we're going to extract it to its own folder. And you can see it's right over here. We're just going to double click on it, and I'm going to show you what's inside. So within that folder, you have another folder labeled PSC_Drastic, and inside you've got your launcher, you've got all of your system configurations, you've got everything that you need right in here. What we need to do is we need to grab our BleemSync 1.1 USB stick build, and we need to open that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. Mine's already plugged into my computer, so I just need to pull it up. Here it is. So now within our BleemSync 1.1 stick, what we need to do is we need to double click on BleemSync. We need to double click on ETC. We need to double click on BleemSync again. And then there's a folder called SUP. We need to double click here, and then we need to double click on launchers. And then we need to drag this PSC_Drastic folder right into this launchers folder. It's not a big file, it just takes a couple of seconds to transfer over, and once that's done, you're pretty much done in terms of the Drastic emulator being loaded into your PlayStation Classic. What you're going to need to do is add some games. So if we go all the way back to the root of my drive, I've got my RetroArch game folder here. Now, Drastic doesn't run within RetroArch, you're actually going to load it right within BleemSync, but I put all my Nintendo DS games inside of my RetroArch folder just so I can keep everything all together. So if I double click here, I've got a ton of games in here, and what I'm going to do is after I show you guys that it's working, I am going to go ahead and show you guys a couple of the settings that I changed so that way it works really well, and then additionally I'm going to then show you guys a showcase of a bunch of games afterwards. That way you guys can see just how well those games are running yourself. So as I said, I've got all my games preloaded. We now have Drastic loaded up onto our BleemSync build. All we need to do now is close off our folders, unplug our USB drive, and pop it into our PlayStation Classic. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we're going to switch over to the PlayStation Classic now. Alright guys, so I am here on my PlayStation Classic boot menu. As you can see, we've got our RetroArch build, we've also got our BleemSync option in front of us as well. I do want to mention I'm currently using a PS4 controller that's plugged into controller port 1 of my PlayStation Classic, and I've also got my PlayStation Classic controller plugged into port number 2. Everything's currently being run on that OTG adapter in the back. So I do have both of my ports available for controllers in the front, but I do want to make note that I am using a PS4 controller directly hardwired in to my controller 1 port, and that's going to be important because, as I'm sure you guys know, with the Nintendo DS you have a touch screen, and what we're going to do is we're going to map the controls of one of our analog sticks to be the stylus, and then we're going to control the click or the button of my other analog stick to configure up with the tapping of the screen. So if you actually press on the screen with your stylus. So what we need to do is hop over to our BleemSync build, and we're good to go now. So you can see now we're within our BleemSync build. As you guys can see, we've got our boot menu, we've got everything else that we have in there, all our previous games. But if we go over to the D section, and you guys will probably start to see it, we've got an icon now called Drastic. And what we need to do here is just press the play button on our controller. So it's the X button, be taken right away to this screen. So this screen is a directory. We don't actually need to be here. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is press the square button, which will take us back to the Drastic main menu. And from here, we've got a couple of options that we wanna change. What we need to do first and foremost is configure the controls. So we'll go down to configure controls, we'll press X, and you can see right over here, we've got, if I move up and down, you can kind of see the blue highlighting the current mapped buttons. We've got KB up, KB down. I believe what that's standing for is keyboard up, keyboard down. What we're gonna do is on the right-hand side of that, there's a whole set of another list of controls as well, and these are all going to be for your controller. So we've got our PS4 controller, as I'd mentioned, plugged in right now. We're going to map the right column of buttons with our PS4 controller. So all you have to do is press the X button and then assign a button. So for D-pad up, we're going to press the X button, it'll highlight to green. Then we're going to press the D-pad up button on our controller. Now, I've already got this pre-configured, but what I do want to mention is that when you get down to the A, B, X, Y, they're pre-configured slightly differently. So for A, we're going to go ahead and press X, and we want that to be our circle button. For B, we're going to go ahead and press that, and we want that to be our X button. For X, we're going to go ahead and press that, and we want that to be our triangle button. And for Y, we want that to be our square button. Then we've got our L trigger, our right trigger, and those are going to be your L1 and R1 buttons. You've got your start button, which we want to map to our options, and our select button, which is going to be mapped to our share button. We've got an option here for hinge shut. So as I'm sure you guys know, when you close the Nintendo DS, it will pause your game and it'll close everything and kind of create almost like a save state that once you open it up again, it'll be there again. You can leave that unmapped. It's not necessary to actually fill it in, but with the PS4 controller, we have that touchpad button. So I'm gonna go ahead and map it there, just so that way it's all mapped up in the event that we ever play a game and you need to have that there. We've already got it pre-mapped. Then we've got our cursor buttons. So the cursor buttons represent your stylus. And when you actually see the game, there's gonna be a little mini stylus that's on there, and it'll almost look like a cursor for a mouse. That's what we need to map one of our analog sticks to. So what I've done is I'm gonna map my analog stick on the left-hand side to be the actual control and the movement of it. What we're gonna find is that that is a little bit easier to control. So I'm gonna go ahead and press X, and then on the left analog stick, we're gonna press up, and then same thing. We're gonna do the same thing for down. We're gonna do the same thing for left, and we're gonna do the same thing for right. So you have an additional option here where it says touch cursor press. That would be as if you were to touch the stylus directly to the screen to make a selection. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my right analog stick, and I'm going to use the actual button of it. So when I press down on the right analog stick, it's going to touch the screen. So we're going to go ahead and set that as well. And as you can see, that's changed. And other than that, we don't have to do much else. I'm going to go ahead and save this for all games. And now we're back to our main menu. Additionally, the other thing that we're going to want to change is in the configuration. So additionally, the only thing that we want to do is change one of the options in here. As you can see, the screen orientation is vertical, and that's totally fine. And what it'll do is it'll stack your upper screen and your touch screen on top of one another. But I do find that when you're using a modern HD TV, obviously you've got much more of a width than you do of a height with most TVs. So it's typically better to switch it over to a horizontal build, because each screen will be much larger and it'll fill up more of the space on the screen, and it'll be much easier to see, and it'll look a lot better. So that's what I've gone ahead and done. And again, I've just made that change. I'm going to scroll on down to exit and save for all games. We're going to hit X, and now that is saved and configured. So now the next time you go into Drastic, all these settings will already be pre-configured for you. In terms of loading a game, what we need to do really quickly is hop into the load new game. Then we've got, it's going to be preset into certain folders. We're just going to press the dot button until we get all the way back out to the root of our USB drive, which is where we want to be. And then we're going to hop into RetroArch games, We're going to pull up our Nintendo DS games, and then all of our games are going to be loaded. And as you can see, they've even got a little bit of artwork on the right-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and get started and show you guys how those games look on this console.
Orders just came in from command. Both National Guard and British forces are being pulled out of this joint training op and into action. Reports of our activity in our sector need to be checked out. So vacation's over. We'll rendezvous with SFSG Bravo team near Wilton to the east. Stay sharp.
That's all I've got for you guys for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you guys have any questions about getting Drastic set up on your BleemSync build, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon.